Welcome to the tutorial on instrumenting your data with Precog. You can ingest data that you're already generating and store it in Precog very easily. This is as simple as adding a couple lines of code that will automatically call the Precog REST API to store events your code is already generating. Let's look at an example of a website that is collecting data through a click event. We want to store when users click on this button and how they respond to a prompt. In this case, how many cows do you want to save? We could put in 1. Then another user comes along and puts in all of them, and perhaps a third user inputs 99. So these are all examples of events that your website might be generating. We can now see how easy it is to instrument this data with the JavaScript client library. Here's the HTML used to build the previous page. All you need to get started using the JavaScript client library is to add a script to your HTML page. So I just pasted in the script that gives you access to the JavaScript client library up at the top here. It is important to remember that you need to replace your API key with your actual API key you received upon signing up. Otherwise, the code won't work. Your API key is what lets Precog know that you can use the API and what directories you have access to. Embedding this script gives access to the precog.store function. In the HTML here, we have some existing data: the answer to the prompt, and the timestamp in formatted JSON. And all this is being saved in a variable called cowSavingData. Since we already have the data, all we need to do is to store it using the precog.store function. At a minimum, the store function, precog.store, requires 2 arguments. First, a path indicating where to store the data, and the data to store. So in this case, we want to change data to store to cowSavingData. And where it says path, you'll want to put the root path you were assigned upon signing up. Then you'll need to create any subpaths you want, perhaps test/instrument. Then you'll need to enclose the path in quotes. To review briefly, this script up here gives you access to the JavaScript client library. The JavaScript client library gives access to the precog store function. The precog store function requires at least 2 arguments, the first of which is the root path you were assigned upon signing up with Precog, followed by any additional subpaths, all enclosed in quotes, and the second of which is the data to store, which in this case is a JSON object. In most cases, you'll want to store JSON objects. It's also important to remember to replace your API key with your actual API key. That's it, you've now instrumented your data. Now that we've instrumented our data, we can begin exploring it using lab code. We can use this interactive development environment to ensure that our data was instrumented appropriately. We've been storing the data in a cows save path, but you'll need to query whatever path you put it in. Let's run this query. Down below we can see some previous results. Let's go ahead and add one more to make sure that the data is properly instrumented. So we save 3 million cows. Then go back to lab code, rerun the query, and we can see down at the bottom that the data got immediately stored in Precog and is accessible in lab code. That concludes our brief tutorial on instrumenting your data. It takes just a couple lines of code to get your data automatically stored in Precog. Thanks for your time.